Greetings, friends. Welcome to CTUCC ConferenceCast for March 8th, 2012, the regular podcast of the Connecticut Conference of the United Church of Christ. Whoever you are, and wherever you may be on life's journey at this very moment, you are welcome here. We offer you a special greeting today for International Women's Day. In a leap year, I must admit, it seems to me that 366 days are not enough to honor the contributions women have made to our families, our churches, our societies, and our world. Thank you. We begin this week's conference cast with this meditation from Cecile Gilson, the assistant to the conference minister. She's inspired by these words from Psalm 19. In the heavens, God has set a tent for the sun, which comes out like a beloved from a wedding canopy, and like a strong athlete, runs its course with joy.
Psalm 19 is a magnificent tribute to God's power and glory, both in creation and in our individual lives. The imagery in the verses about the tent God has made for the sun, which becomes a picture of a wedding celebration, speaks to me of the all-inclusive nature of God's power and glory. Both the sun in the sky and the son born of Mary enter the world as beloved, move with joy, and touch everyone. What's not to celebrate? We recognize this same celebration of God's power and glory in God's creation, our world. We celebrate this great gift we share and do our best to protect and preserve this gift for all generations to come. In our homes, we conserve energy, recycle and reuse, and do our best to live environmentally friendly lives. In our churches, we find ways to become a green church, to live as environmentally friendly congregations. In our spiritual lives, we celebrate God's gift through prayer and praise. One way we can do this is to subscribe to the Ecumenical Lenten Carbon Fast, which is running now. This daily email during Lent reminds us of the precious nature of our environment and how we can help to preserve it. God has given us this great gift of life and the wherewithal to protect it. We can do nothing less than to live into that honor.
You can learn more about Connecticut Conference Environmental Ministries and about the Ecumenical Carbon Fast at ctucc.org.
Here is a prayer for this week. Creator God, we give you thanks for this great gift you have given us. Guide us on our journey to preserve and protect your great gift. Amen.
Please also remember the friends and family of the Reverend Dr. Paul Battenhouse in your prayers this week. He served churches in Danbury, Guilford, and Hartford, along with other places around the country, over the course of 35 years in the ministry. He died on March 1st at the age of 94. In the news this week, for 4 years now, the Clifford Beers Clinic in New Haven has sponsored a conference for caregivers on issues of recovery from adverse childhood experiences, including abuse and neglect. This year, they added a one-day pre-conference for religious leaders whose ministries all too frequently encounter the cold realities of trauma. UCC minister and founder of the Faith Trust Institute, the Reverend Dr. Marie Fortune, observed that all too often we simply do not want to know.
So our challenge is to press beyond that and really come to terms with the fact that this is all of us. In our families, in our communities, among people we care about, and in our faith communities. This is our story. And so we are called to respond. So as we engage this conversation, I think it's always important for those of us who are part of the faith communities to begin from a place of confession, to confess that we have failed around these issues. We have not been there for people. We have not understood. We have not helped frame the issues in ways that would bring healing and change.
Fortune and several workshop presenters spent the afternoon with participants, helping them discover the resources that would enable them to understand the climates that foster trauma and abuse and to change them. According to co-convener, the Reverend Dr. Meredith Jeffers, roughly 1/4 of the participants were UCC clergy. 2 rounds of devastating storms, many spawning tornadoes, swept across several states towards the end of February and the beginning of March. At least 52 have died, according to the United Church of Christ's Disaster Ministries. Through our partner Church World Service, UCC members are already responding, and we will be there over the long haul as these communities turn from rescue to recovery. Gifts to aid the afflicted areas may be made online at ucc.org/disaster. First Congregational Church UCC in Stamford will raise a powerful symbol of acceptance and welcome on March 25th, when they will unfurl a giant rainbow flag from the church's stone bell tower. Stamford First members voted an open and affirming covenant in 2007, which means they promise to welcome all people, regardless of sexual orientation, gender identity, or several other categories, as full participants and members of the church. Interim pastor, the Reverend Dr. Jane Ann Groom, said, "The goal of displaying the rainbow flag is to offer a safe place for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transsexual, and queer folk and their loved ones. The mission is to change the culture so that the whole world becomes safe. Changing the world for the goodness of all people is godly work. It is Jesus' work. It is the gospel embodied." On February 23rd, over 20 church, community, and nonprofit agency leaders assembled at the Conference of Churches offices in Hartford to learn more about a seemingly arcane topic: podcasting. According to co-presenters Carol Vassar-Pettit, the Cause Communications Manager for the Conference of Churches, and the Reverend Eric Anderson, Minister of Communications and Technology for the Connecticut Conference UCC, podcasting offers an inexpensive means to effectively bring a compelling message to a community. Interviewed for a podcast which was produced live right there in the workshop, David Vita of the Westport Unitarian Church said,
"Well, my hope and intention is to come out of actually the whole series of programs here with the ability to really push out the social justice work that we're doing at the Unitarian Church in Westport, to use it to get our events out. We have a lot of events, speakers, live music, films, and I want as many people in the community to be able to avail themselves of our programs as possible."
The workshop was part of the Conference of Churches social media series, which runs through June. It's the beginning of the month, not the end, but we've been a little late this time, and we're glad to welcome John Van Epps to the studio with a touchstone with history.
Last month was the 200th anniversary of the actual start of our foreign missionary movement. On February 6, 1812, 5 seminary graduates were ordained in Salem, Massachusetts, to be foreign missionaries, the first from our country. This foreign enterprise was the result of the famous Haystack meeting in Williamstown, Massachusetts in 1806, when several students pledged their lives to foreign missions, quote, "to bring the gospel to Asia." So the American Board of Commissioners for Foreign Missions was formed in Farmington, Connecticut in 1810. Finally, these 5 missionaries are ordained in February 1812 and set sail for Calcutta, India, later that month, with the wives of the 3 married men. Of this group, 2 were from Connecticut, Samuel Knott of Franklin and Adoniram Judson of Woodbury. On the voyage over, Judson and Timothy Rice converted to Baptist views, so they became Baptist missionaries. Life was not easy for these missionaries. First, the British and the East India Company were skeptical of these foreigners interfering with their commercial enterprises. Also, Britain was on the verge of war with the U.S., which would erupt later in 1812. So the missionaries were ordered out of Calcutta and then settled in Bombay. Some left in 1816 to form the mission in Ceylon, now Sri Lanka. But the missionaries persevered. Samuel Nott returned to the U.S. in 1815 because of poor health. In fact, most of the missionaries and their wives died early from illness and disease. Gordon Hall died in Bombay in 1816, and Samuel Newell in 1821. Few of the early missionaries survived more than 10 years. But the seeds were planted, and many other missionaries followed. More of their stories later this month.
Learn more about these stories and others on our website at ctucc.org/news. Learn more about the unified governance changes to the UCC's Constitution, which will be considered for ratification by conference delegates in May, this Sunday in Bloomfield. The Orange Congregational Church hosts a Green Symposium on Environmental Ministries on March 17th. March in the Sun, our day of workshops for local church leaders, is full, which is a sad and wonderful problem to have. You can join a waiting list at the registration site, but know that we do plan to offer this again, and we'll make sure to have more room. Learn more at ctucc.org/marchinsun. Sign up now for the National Youth Event. This great gathering of youth ages 13 through 18 will be held July 10th through 14th at Purdue University. We're taking registrations, we're granting scholarships, we've got 2 bus trips to get young people to these 5 days of dynamic workshops inspiring worship, hands-on service projects, and rockin' recreation and music. A service bus includes a stop in Cleveland, Ohio for a mission project and to tour the UCC's national offices. The express bus will leave a little later and go straight to Purdue. There's more information online at ctucc.org/NYE. Registration is open for summer conferences at Silver Lake, as well as for 4 retreat and work opportunities this spring. The Maple Sugaring Retreat, March 23rd through 25th. The Spring Women's Yoga and Music Retreat that starts April 13th. Spring Action Weekend starting April 27th. And a new men's retreat called On the Edge of Fire, which runs the weekend of May 4th. Learn more and register for these at silverlakect.org.
You're not alone. It's the road you came in on, the path you walk along, that brought you to this loving, sacred place.
Email, websites, and social networks, oh my, is the title for a day-long workshop on communication for churches to be held in New Britain on April 14th. Local church green teams will have an opportunity to share stories and ideas in Middletown on April 28th. And we're looking forward to hearing from Lily and Daniel on why church matters at the conference's spring meeting in Suffield on May 12th. Learn more about what's coming up in the conference at ctucc.org/events. And that brings this ConferenceCast to a close. Thanks to Cecile Gilson for her reflection, to John Van Epps for our touchstone with history, and to GarageBand for our music. Primary funding for ConferenceCast comes from your congregation's gifts to our church's wider mission, basic support, changing lives through the United Church of Christ. This is Eric Anderson, the Minister of Communications and Technology for the Connecticut Conference of the United Church of Christ, praying that your days this week may be filled with the presence, the guidance, and the grace of God.